Recording.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, cool. So we will get kicking off. So welcome, guys, to our session. It's Wednesday. It's 3 p.m. and it's the last 3 p.m. slot we're actually doing because schools are going back next week, where we're going to have a bit of a week rest period, so to speak, and then we're going to kick back off the week after that. So 3 p.m. till 4 p.m. is our slot. It's the Job Ready scheme supported by the Careers Enterprise Company, and we've got another FTSE 100 company for you today in National Grid. I was looking at National Grid, like we work with them. They're a great company. There's a few different things that are exciting about them, really. I've been looking at some of their roles that they've got open at the moment, so we'll find out about that. But importantly, we've got a HR expert, someone who actually works in HR, and it's their job to pick, people for their organization, so to speak. And they've looked through many different CVs in the past. So we wanted to bring in the best company and the best people to share that experience with you and give you top tips. I'm looking forward to finding out about what not to include in CVs, also to get those inside tips into what to make sure that we do include. But National Grid, we'll find out more. But electricity network, boiling a kettle means that we'll be getting involved in National Grid. They bring us power, connecting the UK to different energy sources. But actually, I was reading as well, it goes as far as New York, which I'm excited to find out a little bit more about. The last couple of sessions, guys, we've had the co-op with understanding your job search. Last week was Severn Trent, looking at your strengths. And this week is all about, now we've got that information. Now, how can we make sure our CV is amazing when we're looking for jobs? So that's us for a bit of an intro. Max, next slide, please. Let's go.
Absolutely. So throughout today, this 1 hour session, there's a few different ways for you guys to communicate. There is a chat box. Some of you have seen it already and used it, which is fantastic. If we ask you ad hoc questions as we go along, put the answer in the chat box for us, okay? But more importantly, there is a Q&A box. That's obviously for Q&A, question and answer. Use the Q&A box, because what that enables you to do is to put your question in the Q&A box. And as we go through the slides and through the content, when it's appropriate to answer that question, we can answer it. But also you might think, oh, I've got a question. I don't know if I need to wait until the end to ask it, or let me just put it in the box, because then you've got it in the box. It's out of your brain, it's on the piece of paper, and then we can answer it when we come to it. So don't worry about that, but use those boxes. Q&A, put your questions in. Anything else, use the chat box. If you're comfortable being unmuted and it works, you can raise your hand and we can unmute you to speak. But we understand that a lot of people not 100% comfortable with that. It can be a little bit slow and clunky, but if you want to, you can. Otherwise, use the chat box in the Q&A box, okay? So that's how we're going to communicate. You're probably wondering, well, who are we? Well, my name is Max. I'm the outreach manager for Pathway CTM. And what that means is that I spend my days going into schools virtually, talking to students like yourselves about different things, about everything that we're talking about through the Job Ready scheme, how to get CV ready, how to get a cover letter ready, how to prepare for an interview, how to prepare for an assessment centre and pass it, and what to expect and how to excel at them. That's what I provide to school. But then for this session and for you students who come to the Job Ready, and others as well, but for you guys mainly, I provide support. So you might think, okay, I had a look at National Grid. They were a great session. They've helped me put my CV together. They've got some really good opportunities. Now I want to apply. Then you can reach out to me and say, help me make sure that my CV is right and ready. I can't help you get the job, but I can help point you in the direction of what is the right thing to do, what might not be the right thing to do, and how to prepare yourself and be in the best possible position to excel through the application process. And also, we might even need to have the conversation. Maybe that role isn't right for you, but you don't know that. You're not sure. We work with a lot of people and there's a lot of roles. We might be able to point you in the right direction according to you. Okay. That's me. So that's Max. And then I've got with me Chris.
Yeah, hi guys. So I'm Chris and I started this company 6 years ago, and it's good to see that we have got about 30-40% of you who have been turning up to these sessions. So well done. Again, do pop in the chat box if there's any that you really preferred or stood out to you. But we've also got 54%, and it's your first time. So really and truly, today is all about skills. CVs are so important. Sometimes they're the blocker between us getting a career that we want or a job or not. And so today is all about skill sets, but it's also National Grid and the roles that they've got available, because it might be that you want to apply for some of their roles, because it's our job at Pathway CTM to make sure that we're linking you into big, good, credible companies. That's like what I'm really passionate about, where they can really put a great mark on your CV in terms of your future career, but also actually making sure that we've got really great people who can just share their experiences in a really informal way. So ask any questions that you want today and make the most of it, really.
Perfect. Let's have a look. There is a poll up on your screen. Some of you have not answered it, but if you see the button click polls, have a look at the questions, answer them. We'll go through the results in a minute. But like Chris said, I know I'm jumping you, Chris, but we're meeting the National Grid today, and we're going to ask them to introduce themselves because you've met Chris and I. So let's meet the National Grid, and I'll introduce Jenny. Welcome, Jenny. Welcome to the session.
Hi everyone, happy to be here today and provide some insights to you. So I'm Jenny, I'm a resource and business partner for the New Talent Programmes at National Grid. I've worked for the company for quite a long time, doing various different roles. I moved back to New Talent last year when we looked at a bit of a transformation project on the process and make improvements. And have since, about November time, I've been managing the team too. So it's been a very busy time, as you can imagine.
Okay, and then
hand over to Simon.
Perfect.
Afternoon, everyone. Yeah, I'm Simon Allison. I work as a connection engineer for National Grid. So I work mainly when we are connecting new and of existing assets back onto the system or to the system, and we have to do that in a safe and conscientious way, really, considering multiple different aspects and effectively ensuring that our engineers are safe throughout the process. So yeah.
Hiya, I'm Michael McDonald. I'm an E&I apprentice currently on scheme at National Grid. I'm in my 3rd year, so I did it straight out of school. So I'm 18 now, so sort of was in a similar position to some of yourselves. We're looking at apprenticeships and stuff like that back in a few years ago now, but hopefully I can give you an insight on sort of what it's been like through my journey.
Brilliant. So we've got Jenny in terms of HR and experience around looking at CVs, Simon, who's been through an apprenticeship scheme, and Michael, who's on one at the moment. So we've got a good panel for us there, which is great.
Fantastic. So we've got the poll results. Let me just end the polling. Almost everybody has answered the question. So let's have a look. I'm going to share the results to the screen as well. Chris, I'll go through the first question. We asked, are you excited to get back to school/college? And 58% have said, get me there already, I'm done with homeschooling. And weirdly, 42% are loving virtual lessons. So that's interesting to hear. Chris, are you?
Yeah, it's great. It's great to see a real mix of students there. Your 11s, 12s, 13s. We've also got those who are actually looking for jobs right away, which is great. Well done, guys, for joining this session today. And we've got a couple of teachers on as well. So welcome to this session today.
Perfect. And then have you been on one of our job ready sessions before? 33% have been following the series quite closely. 56%, this is their first time, which is great. And it doesn't mean that you've missed out on the other sessions that we've done before, because you can get access to those as well. And these do feed one into the other. And we've covered different aspects. And today we're looking at CVs. So don't be afraid. Don't be worried if you've missed out on the other ones, because you can still get access to those. But welcome, and hopefully you'll enjoy it.
Good. And the number one reason that people are joining today they're interested in is know how to make my CV stand out. That's the number one, closely followed by a better understanding of what to put in a CV. So we'll cover that today, guys, in the next 50 minutes.
Perfect. And then the last question, we just want to know what region you're from. And actually the most represented region today, 60% of you are from Southeast and London. And that's really good, because we know that National Grid has definitely got opportunities in the Southeast and London. So yeah, without further ado, let's get to it and let's get back to Jenny. So Jenny, welcome back.
Hi, sorry, it's a bit of a delay. I'm having a few connection issues, so it's been a bit slow. Yeah, so we're going to kick off with, I think Simon starting first. So if you would like to move on to the next slide, please. Great, so I think that's over to Simon.
How are you doing, guys? Yeah, thanks very much. So yeah, I'm going to do a bit of a basis on what National Grid do, how we sort of operate, how it relates to everyone around the UK. We've got assets across England and Wales, and this is to ensure that we can transmit electricity to and from generators all across the country, as well as interconnectors that we connect to the likes of mainland Europe. So over to France and Belgium and so forth. We work quite heavily with what we class as distributors, which is who you might hear more so, the likes of Scottish Power Energy Networks, you've got UKPN, things like that. So that's going down to household level. We work at a higher voltage level, so it's around 400,000 volts. 275,000 volts and 132,000 volts. So kind of large scale, really. And yeah, it's every single employee has an active role in the company to ensure that we work the most efficient ways and the best way for the customers at the end of the day. And the end client really are all of us down at our household level. So it's important that we're working to our best day in, day out to make sure that we deliver what we can. So as you can see here on the slides, we've got around 26,000 employees, and that's really going up year upon year because it's what we need. We need more and more people to be able to, more and more employees to deliver our targets, which I think will go on further in a few other slides. But we've got the targets that we agree with the government and the likes of what we would agree with the EU before Brexit, but it's what we're aiming for as a target net zero to reduce our carbon emissions. And this is going to be done by different aspects such as ruling out coal, the use of coal on the networks, and using more biodegradable fuels and solar and hydro and wind. I'm sure a lot of you who've looked into these things with quite an interesting topic as years go on, the more that we build. And obviously, the more assets we have, the more employees we're going to need. And this is where we really push for apprenticeships and try and get as many apprentices in every year, because we're going to need you. We're going to need everybody training up, getting through the years, and hopefully in future be top-class engineers to work for us, really.
And Simon, just a quick question. I wonder, in the sake of those that are looking for their first job potentially, did you always know you were going to work for National Grid or not?
No, not at all. I'd say it's a difficult one, especially from sort of 16 to 18, 19. You've got a lot of responsibility of everybody's pushing your decisions, really. And I think it was only until my second year of college that I sort of really looked at National Grid. It's not a company I'd really considered beforehand or heard of, as well as a lot of you might have sort of found companies and researched more into companies recently that you've never really even come across. And it was only once I looked into the company and the what they were offering for an apprenticeship that I really considered them then. And I had to weigh up other schemes against the schemes that National Grid have, and I sort of put a bit of pros and cons against it and went on from there.
Awesome. Well, we can get into that in the Q&A at the end, but no, it's really good to get to know you. Thank you, Simon.
No worries. Yeah, the apprentice training, I effectively did a 2-year course with National Grid. This was quite an intense 2-year course because it was whilst I went to university, because National Grid put me through university at the same time. So I worked alongside my studying. What they expect of you is to be able to deliver work at the same time as you're doing your essays, your lectures, so on. Obviously not whilst you're in university. They let you have that time to study and let you have your lectures and such. They're not expecting you to be taking calls or having meetings through all this time. So you have these blocks where you'll go to university or college, depending on what apprenticeship it is and what level you're going at. And then when you are in the workplace, you're expected to be as professional as you would be if you're in a full-time job. So yeah, it's when you're doing the qualifications, you're on a site at Ekron, not far from Nottingham, and it's a really good space where we develop our apprentices, and we have a sort of a fake substation there where we'll do sort of maintenance routines and so on, where we'll effectively be able to train on as if it was a live system, and from that we can then take the learning we've took from there and then input that into our job on site and with the offices as well.
Great.
Next slide.
So I'm going to be sort of expanding sort of from Simon on some of the schemes that we provide. So this is the current program that I'm on, the Advanced Apprenticeship. So these are the ones that you can join from 16 all the way up. It doesn't have an upper age limit, so you're coming to the end of your sixth form and you're thinking, I quite fancy having a go at this. It's quite a good option. I mean, over half of the apprentice group I'm with did do prior education before, so sixth form and stuff. So it does have obviously the perks on the side there. So you do get all your annual leave days, your pension scheme. There's a company share save option, so that is where you input money in and you buy shares with it. You'll get it explained to you a lot if you do come into the company, but more want to talk about the facilities and stuff. So like Simon was saying, we do have a state-of-the-art training facility at Ekron, sort of North Nottinghamshire, where there is a fake substation that you can practice all your skills on. There is a gas, so obviously I work on the gas side, so I spend a lot of time onto a above ground installation we've got there. So gas pipes coming out of the air that runs off a low pressure air system to resemble gas, but obviously without the dangers of highly flammable gas. And you also split your time up in between college and Ekron on these schemes. So you split into blocks, and like other companies where they might send you 1 day a week or a few days a week. So it can be quite beneficial. Like the last 2 weeks I've been doing college work. So you go away and you'll do 2 weeks at said college. So if you're a mechanical apprentice, you'll go to West Cheshire College and you'll get a mechanical apprenticeship level 3 and level 4. That's why these are 4-year schemes, mainly 4-year schemes. So you'll do your BTEC level 3 while getting paid, and also all the benefits of working for a company. And you'll also do your MVQ in your first 2 years. And then in your second 2 years, you'll do your MVQ level 3, which is under the Trailblazer certificate. And you'll do your HNC level 4, as well as all your on-job training and all your 18th edition if you're electrical, and your complex, which is working hazards areas. So it is quite intensive. You do get obviously all the qualifications you would get from going to college, as well as getting paid, and all these extra qualifications which do really help you on later down the line. Another thing about at the bottom there, that the National Grid, within your 17th birthday, you are required to get within 12 months of your 17th birthday, you're required to get a driving licence. However, National Grid does partially fund you gaining your driver's licence, so they will give you a set amount of money to help towards your lessons and your tests and stuff like that, and they are quite supportive of things like that.
Michael, how many years have you been in the company?
I'm in my 3rd year now, so I'll start my 4th in September, so I joined September 2018.
Cool, and we'll get onto the CVs bit in a second, because it's just good to know a bit more about the company, and you guys are on the call. But it's a big company, so did you actually need your CV for the application process, or did you have it prepared anyway?
The way that the application scheme works is a little bit different. So I had like a pre-built CV, but you upload that, and as well, what's quite good is they get you to answer questions which sort of guide you along your CV. So sort of things like you'll upload your CV, and then you'll have part of the application process will be, what prior education have you had, and it sort of guides you. It's quite helpful. But yeah, I was sort of around the time I was 15. When I came to the assessment centre for National Grid, and it was quite daunting. I mean, I wish I did something like this back then, because it would have been quite helpful. But yeah, when you go to an assessment centre when you're 15, are surrounded by people that all the way up from the age up to the age of 35, as some people on scheme 35, 40 years old. So it is a very different ages and ability and stuff like that. But as long as you got the right attitude and things like that, it's quite important.
No, that's great. Thanks, Michael. And Jenny will be talking about that, guys, in terms of big businesses versus smaller businesses, but how they use CVs. But ultimately, you still need your CV, depending on what you need to be applying to. But we'll go into detail on that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so I think next slide, please. Oh, sorry, wrong one, back one. Sorry, I missed that one out. So yeah, this slide is about the higher apprenticeship. So there's 2 main types of apprenticeship. So there's the advanced apprenticeship, which is the one out of school, so you can do from the age of 16, and you only need GCSE qualifications or A-level equivalents. Whereas on the higher apprenticeship schemes, you need A-levels, and the company will put you through your level 4 qualification at university. So this is a sort of scheme that Simon would have been on. So this is where the company, it's usually 2-year schemes. The company will send you away to university, and you have your on-job training as well. So you do the same sort of format where you do block units at university, and then you'll come back and you'll do some blocks at the training centre, getting all your courses done, and then as well doing your MVQs and stuff like that, other qualifications that you will need.
Fantastic. 24k salary. Geez, that's not too bad. Play Max. Let's go to the next one, shall we? Good stuff.
So for me, sort of the key elements of the training program are that how they split up the training is very different to where you may go anywhere else. It's along the lines of where you get to focus on certain bits at a time. So where you would go to another business and you'd have 1 day a week over the space of 2 years, where it can be quite intensive and trying to remember everything. In National Grid, you split it down into blocks. So you do blocks away, and you get sent away to college and you live in a hotel where you get £20-30 a day on food and drink, and then you go to college in West Cheshire, so up it towards Liverpool on my scheme. Really why I applied for National Grid is it sort of came around by chance, really. I live in Coventry, quite near the the gas main headquarters in Warwick. So out of coincidence and meeting people, I was sort of wanting to go into utilities. I was looking at the likes of Severn Trent and things like that. And I just sort of stumbled across it, and I'm not going to lie, the salary for a 16-year-old on 18,000 a year when I first joined was pretty incredible, to be honest. So that was definitely an eye-opener. But like I said, for me, my main hints and tips would be just have the right attitude, be passionate, and find something you want to do. It's no good, thinking, oh, this looks nice. Find something that you want to do. If you're passionate about engineering or a business development or strategy, have a look into. There is schemes to suit everybody. So if you find a scheme you think that's quite good, I'd suit that, have a go at it, apply for it, understand more about the role. And that's really my best tip, is find something you're passionate about. It doesn't preferably be within the business, but yeah, so obviously, and especially it helps as well. The more passionate you are about what you do, the easier it comes to you, the better you find it. That's famous saying, cliche, but find something you're passionate about, you never work a day in your life.
Yeah, definitely. And setting the scene up really well. And Simon, just briefly, anything from you before we move on? We'll get to the CV content very shortly, guys.
Yeah, effectively, yeah. So a really good part of how I really enjoyed my apprenticeship. You find a really good mix of people joining, because it's not just sort of when you do start, it's not just the higher apprentices together or just the advanced apprentices together. Sort of everyone joins together for the first 6 weeks or so. You get a really good sort of new aspect of people, and you get a good mix with everyone. Get to know a lot of people, and it's great because as you move around the company and as you develop in your career, it's good to have those contacts at the same time, because you'll know, oh yeah, I know somebody at that site, or I know somebody in that area of the business. And yeah, the apprenticeships, it's excellent. You've got a lot of qualifications that the company invest a lot in each apprentice. I think when myself and a couple of other apprentices sort of looked into how much they actually invest in you over 2-3 years, you consider the university that they cover, the qualifications that they put you through, your salary, things like that, you're talking over about £250,000 that they'll invest in per apprentice, just from the amount that they actually cover for you. That goes obviously through expenses and things like that you've got if you're going off to uni and you've got to go in a hotel, things like that. So when you come out of that scheme, you're worth a hell of a lot more than you think. So that first sort of few months when you properly go into your full-time job, it's almost expected that you deliver, that you've got to put the effort in, you show that you're willing. And I can only sort of advise that you do that from the start, from when you first start applying for jobs, with your CV, with your sending off your personal statement. Try and put that across the best way that you can. We like to see in the apprentices that they're willing to do the job. They're not just going to sit back and just roll along in the process. And yeah, it's really important that we sort of that you enjoy the job though. Don't just go into it because the money's sounding good. You've got to enjoy it. And Michael hit the nail on the head there. That if you enjoy your job, it's never going to be a problem. You don't want to be sort of waking up in the morning, go, oh, no, I just don't want to be going into work today. Yeah, you get that in school and college, things get boring and stuff, but you want to enjoy your job. Find something that you're willing to want to do for a while. But the thing is, with National Grid, it's quite a big company. There's quite a lot of movement, so you can move around the company as well. So maybe you might go in at a certain level as like an engineer or whatever area that you focus in through your apprenticeship, sorry. And then after a few years, you might find an opportunity somewhere else in the business, and you can move around, and the skills that you've developed in that previous role, you can then apply elsewhere. So yeah, it's a good company to work for in that sense.
No, it's great. And thanks, Simon, Michael. We just wanted to set the scene there because they love their roles and they've done really well to get into jobs that they love. And I think that's what life's all about, isn't it? But here we go then. So final slide now before we get into the CV content, but it's really relevant because we've got 4 different stages. And I'm really interested to know how a CV fits into this, so to speak. So over to the guys at National Grid for this one.
Thanks, back to me. Yeah, I just thought I'd include this slide. Obviously, Simon and Michael have been talking about their experiences and how they joined National Grid. So I just wanted to give you an update on the process, the application process, because it did change for this year's sort of campaign. So stage 1 is the online application, which Simon and Michael alluded to. So as they mentioned, there's a series of questions that we ask. So you fill in the application online. You don't have to upload a CV, but we would prefer it if you did, and the business do like to see a CV. So I appreciate that some of you may not have much work experience, but it's always good to see a CV, qualifications achieved, etc. So yeah, so that doesn't take too long to complete the online application. It's about an hour, but you can save and return to it later and update it when you need to. And it's many things about, you know, your personal details, your work history, and there's a motivational question as well, which is scored. So if you do apply for National Grid, just make sure you do answer that question as best as you can, because we do look at it and that is a sort of screen in, screen out to take you to the next stage. So if you pass stage 1, you'll go into online digital video questions. So they vary depending on what scheme you go on to. And after that, there's also some online gaming assessments that is scored. And when you've completed stage 2 and 3, you'll get a feedback report automatically from the system. And we use a company called HireView for that stage. And that does link into the National Grid system as well, so we can see scores, etc. The assessors across the business do also view those videos. So it is scored by AI, but it does have human assessment as well. So I know some people are a little bit nervous about that, but don't be, because everything is assessed again, just to make sure things are as they should be. And we do some dip sampling as well to make sure that our scores align with the AI scores. And so far it's been pretty accurate. So that's been good. And if you pass those stages, you will be invited to an assessment centre. Obviously, with the nature of the way things are at the moment, it is a virtual assessment centre, but you will be fully provided with updated details and, you know, where to go, the links, who's going to be assessing, the nature of the assessment, etc. And we're due to start the apprenticeship assessment centres at the end of this month. I think we mentioned it earlier, but the apprenticeship applications do close on the 14th of March, so it's a week on Sunday. So if you are interested, we recommend that you get your application in as soon as possible before those dates close. Great, shall I move on to the next slide?
That's it. Thanks, Jenny. Jenny, I wonder, how many CVs do you think you've seen in your career?
It'd be thousands.
Okay.
Thousands, absolutely thousands. I mean, to give you an idea, and I did mention that you don't have to put a CV in for the new talent programs, but we would prefer it if you did. We might change that to mandatory going forward. But so far, since we opened the graduate, undergraduates and apprenticeship programs at the end of November, we've had roughly about 8,500 applications, and we've got about 170 positions across the different programs. So we have had a very strong response rate. We've had some very good on-demand and gaming scores as well to get people through to assessment centre.
That's amazing. Guys, you heard that interns and graduate roles, so we can do that at the Q&A as well and ask Jenny anything you want around those. But let's get into the detail then, Jenny. Thank you.
Yeah, so just to give you a bit of an introduction about CV writing, I'm going to talk a little bit about what to include, provide some hints and tips. We can talk a little bit about CV templates, but again, that's mainly up to you. And yeah, we're not going to talk about LinkedIn today. I did take that out, so I should have taken it off at the introduction, so apologies for that. I just don't think we'd have time to go through all of that. But basically, for those of you who haven't done a CV before, it is a short written summary which includes an overview of your skills, achievements and experience, which is designed to sell yourself to prospective employers. So it is used at the first stage of the assessment or application process. And as we've spoken before, with some employers often ask for a CV instead of an application form, but we do have the application form as mandatory. CV is great if you could, but we do strongly recommend that you do include one. Just before we go into the actual hints and tips, a lot of people do put a personal statement at the top of their CV. So that just includes like a brief overview of like who you are, what your strengths are, any work experience and education you've got, but also just a brief summary of, you know, skills you've gained, such as, you know, what you're good at, like time management, customer service, teamwork, etc. But it literally is just usually a short paragraph, just to introduce yourself and just sell yourself at the top of that CV.
Jenny, is that one of the most important bits? If you're looking, I've heard that sometimes employers spend 7 seconds on a CV. A, is that true? And B, what's the bit that you look to first? I
think it's great to see a personal statement because it just highlights those key things that candidate feels that, you know, is sort of high value to them. But going through the CV, obviously we do look for the key attributes for the role itself, and obviously qualification, especially with new talent programs, is key. Because there is that set criteria. And I just wanted to mention with the advanced apprenticeships, we're only accepting, excuse me, candidates who've already achieved their GCSEs. So that might rule out some of the year 11 students who are on the call today, but it's great that they're on the call because, you know, for next year, we'd welcome applications from them next year, or, you know, if they've got any friends or family who are at that stage, then it'll be good to have their applications too.
Cool.
But before we go on as well, Jenny, one of the questions that we had in the poll at the beginning for you students that are out there, one of the questions that was what is the CV actually for? And quite a high percentage of you actually clicked on that. What is the CV actually for? Jenny started to break it down. Pay attention to what's on the slides. Pay attention to what it says on there. What is the CV actually for? Because it can be a bit mystifying as to what is this for? Is this going to get me a job or not? We're going to hear the hints and tips on what to include and what not to include, and it will break it down better for you. So let's have a look. Thanks, Jenny.
Great. Yeah, so the question there, what is the purpose of the CV? So a CV is to help you get an interview, not to get you the job. So what you put into your CV is really important because, again, we've seen thousands of CVs over the years. Some of them can be quite lengthy. Please, if you can, don't go over 2 pages. I've seen CVs that have been, you know, up to about 15 pages long and they've been quite repetitive. So just make sure you don't do that. But the key things that you need to include are obviously name, address, email address, and phone, mobile phone number, because we do like to get in contact with you as quickly and the best way possible. Obviously, that'll be on your application form as well. If you've done any work experience previously, any, you know, even permanent roles or just general work experience, if it's 2 weeks, like you do at school, again, just include that, excuse me, on your CV. So we get an idea of who you've worked for and what you've done and the nature of the role. Dates of employment is key too, and if you are successful in being offered a position with National Grid, you will have to complete a background checking form. So that does include information about dates of employment. So it's always good to just make a note of when you started, because you do forget over the years as well, and it's great to have that recorded somewhere. As I mentioned, any details of any work experience, so go through the key aspects of what the role was. If you can include the title, that's great. The key aspects of what you did, what you learnt, who you worked with, any key responsibilities, all works to help when we're sifting your CV and then marking you as well. Key achievements, that can be inside of school, it can be outside of school, such as extracurricular activities. If you're captain of a football team or netball team, or done any voluntary work, or you know, caring work, etc. Anything that will give you a few extra points as to what you've done that shows that you're a bit more driven and a bit more flexible and you know, keen to learn as well. That just makes your CV stand out a little bit more than potentially somebody who hasn't put stuff like that in. you could get, sorry, carry on.
Go on, Jenny, carry on, and I'll ask a question.
Yeah, I was just going to say that I think a question came up about how can you just differentiate your CV from other people. If you're all at a stage when you're at school or college, you've probably not had much work experience, you've got the same sort of qualifications, you're applying for the same sort of roles, to put in that extracurricular stuff and any other key achievements and awards and like Duke of Edinburgh Award and all that sort of stuff does give you extra points, because it just shows you're probably a bit more driven and enthusiastic to do something outside of the norm.
And those that are stuck at home, like we all are really, and haven't had the opportunity for normal work experience, could you put down coming on sessions like this and, you know, furthering your knowledge? I mean, for example, even if it's not a national grid, maybe if someone said that they went on an IBM or a Microsoft webinar, would that still look good on your part because it shows they're proactive, even though they maybe not came on your webinar? I don't know. Yeah,
definitely. Anything like that, e-learning, anything you've done above and beyond to just improve your own skills, definitely put it down on your CV.
Good. Okay, good. So two pages then. The personal profiles a really important part. Well, one thing actually, if you see like an unprofessional email, because we've all had that email, you know, when we're growing up that maybe we just made offhand, would that be enough to maybe fail someone if the email is completely inappropriate?
I think it depends on obviously what the nature of it is. We have had you know, a few instances where something has not been quite right on a CV, or doesn't, you know, potentially, you know, doesn't seem quite right generally. So we do tend to call the candidate to talk it through, because they might not be aware that something has been added to their CV. You know, it could be a prank as well, so which isn't great, but we do try and sort it out. But just be mindful that what you do put on your CV, be mindful as well of email addresses. So they should be professional, because it can be picked up, but we wouldn't discount somebody. We'd rather just talk them through it and make them aware that.
I suppose that's where you've asked your friend to proofread it for you and they stick something in as a bit of a joke. Does that happen sometimes?
Yeah. Right. So always double check before you submit. That's my advice. Sorry, Chris, could I go back to that other slide? I know we're getting short of time, but there's a few other bits I just wanted to clarify. Yeah, obviously include your education, your training, qualifications, any IT systems knowledge and stuff as well is always a massive plus. Interest in hobbies, which we've sort of mentioned as well. You can include any references, don't have to go into chapter and verse about that, but it's up to you. And the main thing is obviously to tailor your CV to the role. So we do see it that we get candidates apply that put the same CV in for multiple positions. And if your CV doesn't match the role description, you'll go down in marks because you just won't be ticking enough boxes to put you forward to the next stage. And obviously just keep it up to date and look at that formatting and anything else that needs to be checked. So yeah, I just wanted to just go back over those few points.
No, it's good. So Jenny, at National Grid, you can apply for more than one apprenticeship, for example. So are you saying that you really should tailor your CV to each application?
If it's for the advanced or the higher apprenticeship program, then no, because it's pretty much the same criteria with what we're looking for skills and qualifications and stuff. But if it was for anything else, then especially if some of the guys on this call today might decide they want to go for an experienced hires role. So maybe forget programs, but there might be a suitable position that's advertised. But yeah, just look at the role description and then tailor your CV so it matches, what we're looking for. Great. And sell, your skills that you've got.
Thank you.
I remember students that we asked that question at the beginning, and I said, look out for it. And Jenny, it does say it up here, the purpose of the CV. You said it before about it's a statement about your skills and your interests and your eligibility for the role. And you beautifully put here that a CV is to help you get an interview, not get you the job. And I think that's one thing that students need to feel more comfortable with, that you're not going to be immediately hired or not considered for a job just on the basis of your CV. So the question is, what does the CV do? And Jenny, you wouldn't look at a CV and go, damn, I'm going to give this person a job straight away, would you?
No, it's just the start of the process. So it's getting to know the candidates, what skills they've got, how they match to the role, and that's just a starting point really for us to do that initial screening and then take them through the next stage of the process.
Thank you.
Great, so moving on to just some hints and tips, which probably cover some of the things we've already discussed. So just highlight any professional accomplishments in your career or school education, if you were head boy or girl, anything like that, which gives you a bit more sort of responsibility points. Obviously showcase your skills. It is an opportunity to sell yourself, and just make your CV or application stand out a little bit more from the standard ones that might come in. Obviously put it in an easy to read style, no jargon, because it might mean something to you, but it might not to the reader. So just always bear in mind that what you put in, the reader needs to understand. Show that you're able to communicate in a straightforward way. As mentioned, no jargon. Detail any academic credentials. Obviously, it's key, especially with the new talent programs, because they are a minimum. There are minimum qualification criteria that we adhere to. As we've mentioned, check for spelling, grammar. Make sure nobody's tampered with it before it's put forward, and just make sure you're happy with what you put through. And of course, obviously, tailor it to the role. So it's we can give you more points for ticking off the things that we're looking for. What you shouldn't include is any sort of personal details, age, gender, sex, marital status, etc. It's not relevant, and we're not marking on that. So don't include that. Don't include too much detail that isn't relevant to the role. Again, I mentioned sometimes we see CVs that are 15 pages long, and it's quite repetitive. It's great to see, career history, but we don't need all the details behind that, because it may not be relevant for the role that you're applying for. It seems a little bit probably harsh, but don't lie or embellish the truth. If you get through to like the interview stage, and then you're queried or questioned on your CV and past history, that's where you may come a little bit unstuck. So just keep things as factual as possible. And with formatting, don't be tempted to shrink the font or reduce margins, etc. Just keep it as easy as possible to read. I know some people would like to get as much detail in as they can, but just keep it to the specifics that we're looking for. And you don't have to include a picture in your CV. It's not necessary. Some people like to, but yeah, that's not necessary either.
And Jenny, just on that line of not lying, I mean, sometimes I think maybe as a Brit myself, like we always think, oh, I don't want to overdo and overegg, and I don't want to sound arrogant. I'm always telling young people, like, what did you do in that situation? And no, go on, you did more than you think you did there. Stop being modest. But on the flip side, you can't go too far, and then you end up maybe getting pulled up on it. Maybe what examples would you have on that, or any further advice around where to draw the line?
Yeah, I suppose, like I said, just keep it factual. And when you're in an interview, you're going to get asked about what you did rather than the team, or, so try and avoid answering, we did this in a project, because it could be that, we want to know, you might have done stuff in a project, we want to know exactly what you did. So if you sort of take the credit for something else that somebody else has been doing as part of the project, then you might not be able to fully answer the questions at interview stage, because you haven't been as involved as you may have made out you had. But it is good to sell yourself. I know it's difficult, as you mentioned, Chris, but we do want you to sell yourself as much as possible, so we know what your ability is, and to showcase yourself.
And Jenny, if I may ask then, so let's put in something around being captain of a sports team or something. As an interviewer, do you try and dig into the CV and go, okay, so tell us about a time when you did X, or tell us a bit more about that? And then if we're obviously lying, that's when we don't have any examples to share. Is that right? Yeah,
that's right. So we will have interview set questions that will be asked, but the assessors will have access to the application form on the CV, and like I mentioned, they do like to see them. So if somebody came into an interview and they were struggling to think of an example to the question, then the interviewer may go back to refer to the CV and say, well, you've stated here that you've done like X, Y, Z. Can you tell me a bit more about this? And that's when they'd start probing on that detail as well.
Cool. But I guess it's just to find out more about them in a nice way, right? It's not to be scared of, but it's just to know how you use the CV, I suppose.
Yeah.
Fine.
But yeah, and with interviews and stuff, obviously everything's being done virtually at the moment, but we have had training for the managers on how to handle virtual situations and when systems crash and all that sort of stuff. So we do try and make the candidates feel at ease as possible. So it could be the first time they've been to an interview or an assessment centre. So yeah, we just try and make them as comfortable and as welcome as possible.
Great. And I know we're coming on to questions now on the next slide. But Jenny, one question I would have for you on that next slide is how do you cope with nerves? Like, you've seen people on the other side of it. Does it go against me if I've got sweaty palms and I'm a bit sweaty and I'm a bit nervous, but I hold it together? Is that still okay?
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. As I mentioned, the assessors will put you at ease, give you time to think. If you get a little bit nervous when you're answering the questions, they will give you some time to think about that. So yeah, get yourself a glass of water, just make sure you're comfortable. Prep beforehand, test your systems, know the company, do as much research as you can, and then just be available. But don't worry if something goes wrong with technology, and just be aware that be assured that the assessors will keep you as comfortable as possible. And I'm sure Simon and Michael, having been through the process fairly recently, will be able to maybe give you some examples of that if there's any questions about personal experience recently.
Yeah, Michael, Simon, I'm really interested to see like how you dealt with your experiences and your CVs and how you brought that out at the interview. Can you remember? I know it's a few years ago.
Yeah, so for me personally, I joined, like I said, I was 15 at the assessment centre, so things like prior experience and stuff like that, I was really digging for, but it doesn't have to be within work and stuff like that, so that extracurricular stuff, so I played rugby all my life, so things like where have you shown teamwork or, motivation and stuff like that, could be anywhere from you go and you do extra training for your football during the week, something like that, along them lines, where you can use your experiences to show good characteristics that the business is looking for, but it doesn't have to be within business. So that's my main tip for that, really.
Thanks, Michael. Simon?
Yeah, I think really the whole prep side of things, I definitely would advise just make sure that you're really read into the company. Maybe sort of have a bit of a note down what sort of ongoing big projects we've got going on. It's something interesting sort of you could bring up in your interview, and usually at the end of an interview we usually ask something like, "Oh, is there anything you'd like to ask us?" Try and think of a few questions, like it might not be something that you've even got an inkling into what it might be, but just you have to ask a question that will get the interviewers thinking, "Oh, he or she has got a bit of a clue about what we're doing here. They've actually researched the company and seen what's gone on." And yeah, it's just a good bit of sort of backing to have. And yeah, I think when you said about having sweaty palms and stuff like that, I think everyone gets nervous in these sort of situations, whether it's an interview or a panel or whatever it is. Just try and deep breaths and try and just focus on what you know, and then usually about 10 minutes in, you'll find it'll just flow quite a bit easier once you're comfortable. You're always allowed a bottle of water in the interviews and things like that. It's not like we're going to completely starve you of any rest. We don't want you talking constantly. Take your time and just try and slow it down a bit. You get a lot of people sort of trying to get it really quickly out of the way, and then they're back out of the room. If you can just sort of take a breath, calm yourself a bit, and then carry on. Definitely try to prepare into those situations.
It's good advice. So guys, we've got Jenny, Simon, Michael, just for some questions. We've got questions in the Q&A box. Max, should we go next slide and get through them?
Absolutely. And with the questions we've got in the Q&A box, and Simon, I know you've seen it already and you want to answer it for us, but somebody has asked, where can I find places to apply for National Grid? I am from the Southeast.
Yeah, I did. I just clicked on it. I was going to type it out. But yeah, so effectively we've got a good careers website. I'm sure Jenny will be able to drop a link in maybe. Oh, it's right there on the slide previous actually. And all the roles will have sometimes it'll say UK, any location, and then further into the actual site itself, it will say what sites around the UK it is. Around the southeast, we've got plenty of sites. You've got ones around like Tilbury and down in Brain. We've got interconnectors down there, things like that. We've got substations pretty much around every 10 square miles, 15 square miles, because we have teams based around constantly. Sort of depending where they are based, they'll have engineers spread about. But there's plenty of sites around the southeast for National Grid.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, sorry.
I was going to say that one of the questions that we've got come through, Jenny, you might be able to answer this, is that what would you say is the best way to format a CV? And should we use any specific? When you see a CV, what turns you off in terms of format, and what kind of excites you or makes your life easier in terms of format?
It broke up a little bit then, but I think you were saying about the format.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah. So keep it as simple as possible. There's it's entirely up to you how you want to do and format your CV. There's loads of examples if you Google online of best ways to do a CV, but generally your name and personal information at the top. If you want to put in a personal statement, great, and then maybe go into your qualifications first, given that where you are in your careers, and then any work experience and hobbies and extracurricular stuff you've done. But yeah, keep it the format simple, easy to read, no jargon, and again, if you can, keep it within under 2 pages. And just tailor it exactly to what we're looking for. So the key points stick out as best as they can for the reader.
Great. Thank you, Jenny. I've just got another one for you here as we get through them. In your CV, should you attach your LinkedIn if you have one?
Yeah, that's always good to do. And it's great to hear that some people have got a LinkedIn account, because we do promote our roles on LinkedIn too, because we obviously want to get to a wider audience. So yeah, by all means, put your LinkedIn profile. We can have a look at that as well.
Right. And Jenny, would you be impressed if they said that they added you on LinkedIn if they knew you were interviewing you, for example, or is that a bit weird?
That's right. I do get candidates and other partners that we deal with, different companies trying to link me. So yeah, that's absolutely fine. I have to say I need to update my profile. I haven't done it.
Now's the time to do it. Thanks, Jenny.
Yeah.
So we've got another question as well. It's like, what do you advise we avoid when writing a CV, and what stands out the most, considering there's only 6 or 7 seconds spent on each CV?
Yeah, I think, as I mentioned before, avoid any repetition, especially if you've had similar roles. If you've had done a couple of different bits, because we've read it. Just keep it factual. Anything that's badly formatted, spelling mistakes as well. So just make sure you do format and check for spelling mistakes. As I mentioned, no abbreviations, because it may not mean anything to the reader. So keep it, clear, factual. Tailor it to the job description, so we can give you as many marks as possible.
That's great. We've got questions coming in. It's our job to get through them, so we're going to go quick fire. Jenny, you might be used a bit here. So, certification or license, what do you put there if it doesn't come up? Oh, they're applying for the substation engineer role, so this is quite specific. Sorry,
you broke up again. I think it's my system. It keeps going in and out. What was the question?
Someone's asking, they're applying for the substation engineer role. What do they put if certification or license doesn't come up? Or for what they do, I suppose, on the application form. It's quite specific. We could get back individually if you'd rather.
Yeah, that's fine. If there's any specific qualification stuff they have, then again, just put it on your CV and attach that in, because the application form's quite specific with the questions that we ask. So there may be a free text box, but I think that's mainly linked to the motivational questions. So if you put it on your CV and upload that, then we'll have the info. So hopefully that answered the question. I know it broke up a little bit.
Max, have we still got your line? I think Wi-Fi is struggling everywhere.
No, you got me. So we've got another question. During the interview, what is the best way to answer negative traits about yourself? Example, being a perfectionist. I suppose this is a question that comes up a lot, because one thing that we would like to say is that, remember, when you get into an interview, you're never going to get 100% of the questions right, and you're not going to be 100% perfect fit. So get that out of your mind. There are going to be questions that you're going to answer badly, or that you're not going to answer correctly. It's just minimizing them, and the ones that answer them well. But when we talk about negative traits, we'd say that that's actually a good thing to know, wouldn't we, Jenny? It's good to know those negative traits about yourself, right?
It is. Sorry, it's going on and off. It is, and don't be afraid to say that either, because sometimes the interviewing panel do want to know, what potentially may have gone wrong in a role or a project, or with relationships and stuff. But the key thing is how you overcame that, what you did to put things right, and what you potentially learned from it as well. So yeah, it doesn't all have to be perfect, because things do sometimes go wrong, but it's good to understand that and how it was dealt with too.
That's great. Thanks, Jenny. So we've got a few questions here on interviews. We've got 5 minutes left. I think we can get through them. Good questions, guys. So we'll go for it. Okay, so we'll go for, bear with me, things are being answered. Max, I'm just double checking. That's not the noise in the background, is it? There is a background noise. It's not your heater, is it?
It's not. No, it is not my heater.
It's something else. To figure out where it's coming from. Sorry. We know about Max's heater. Here we go. And another one on LinkedIn, Jenny. Can LinkedIn be used to also find work experience? You mentioned there, and maybe Simon, Michael, if you guys use LinkedIn at all, did you use it to get your first job, and do you use it now? Any comments on LinkedIn would be really great, because we didn't cover it today.
I think I only use LinkedIn sort of from a sort of looking at who is in the company perspective. You can get sort of a good sort of knowledge on who the executives of the company would be from LinkedIn. If you just search the likes of like hashtag National Grid on LinkedIn and things like that, you get a lot of different, a lot of the employees. So I'll be on there, I'm sure Jenny is on there, things like that. And it's a good basis to sort of, if you can, you're lucky sometimes, you can message them and say like, what would your highlight be for as working as a CEO of National Grid? And I think it's something that can work in some respects. I think it would depend on the actual the employee or the CEO at the time, whoever it is. I'm not saying go and message the CEO, by the way. Like that's just things that do happen sometimes. But it's a good tool to have, put it that way, on LinkedIn. Yeah.
Good, thanks, Simon. Anything else, Michael or Jenny, if appropriate?
No, I think just similar to Simon, really. Having LinkedIn is definitely not going to hinder you, so it can only help. So get yourself on there if you can, put in any experience, and try. It's all about networking and trying to meet people and try and make yourself look as appealing as possible. So the more you network within the company and the more you find out, it's another way to research the company. The more you find out about the company, the better.
No, they're great answers, chaps. Thank you. Max, should we go to the next question because we've got them coming through?
Absolutely. Just to let guys know that I have put a link in the chat box, which is to a little survey. And if any of you are thinking about applying to National Grid or other opportunities or want help with your CV, it's in there, the information how to get with in the session with me, but it's also just to help you in the future. Somebody's asked quite an important question. I don't really understand how funding for uni level apprenticeships work. Who pays for it? But that's essentially, if you join a company like National Grid on a degree apprenticeship or on a higher apprenticeship, it is National Grid that will pay for it. It's not yourself. You won't pay for it. And there is funding in different ways through to companies to pay for those. So that's not something that you need to worry about. It's not like going to university and have to pay tuition fees. So we can get that out of the way. You don't need to worry about that. Doesn't apply to National Grid roles. So let's forget about it.
And just on that really quickly, Max, yeah, because Emma, well done for asking that. Jenny, I picked one out that I thought was a great role, gas transmissions degree level apprenticeship in Warwick. So that would be a degree level, wouldn't it? And do you have to live near Warwick, or maybe there's some people relocate to go there? I just wondered.
Yeah, so for that new scheme, it is new for this year. They're looking at applicants within a 25-mile radius of Warwick, but that's not to say that we wouldn't, discount people out, but they would potentially have to relocate if they're outside of that radius. But yeah, it is a degree apprenticeship, so there will be a degree. It's fully funded, so there'll be no sort of student loans and things as if you would go to a university, down the traditional route, because you are on a programme that's been supported.
Sounds good to me. Sorry to interrupt you, Max.
No worries. Okay. What if you don't have maths? Does that affect anything? But you have an A-level or equivalent. Can you still apply to National Grid roles then?
Yeah. Advise checking the qualifications, and it was on one of the slides, but generally maths is a requirement for some of the roles that we recruit for. But yeah, if you double check, because it does vary, there's usually a minimum, but some of the subjects vary. Yeah, so if you've got that's the advanced apprenticeship. Yeah, so GCSE maths, English, and then the higher, the same, plus the A-level results too.
Good question.
But like I say, some of the subjects do vary. Yeah, maths is pretty much a given, but just double check it.
Good questions. We've got a couple of minutes left. We better go on to the slide that just says what's coming up next. But I do have one more question. Jenny, I'm back on you again. And does National Grid offer any work experience, year 10 or year 12? If so, where can they apply?
Again, it's coming on and off camera. We do, but generally it's managed locally. So if somebody was looking for work experience in the local area or near one of our offices, then obviously you've got my contact details. We can try and speak to the business and manage something. Generally, work experience is a week unpaid for up to 18-year-olds. So, but yeah, we do offer it. And obviously doing things virtually, we're looking at different ways as well that we could essentially help people. But hopefully we'll be back in the office soon and can start arranging a few more of those.
Yeah, I know we do a lot of work with Small Peas Trust as well. I've been involved with some of that. So over the summer, like year 10 sort of level students will come down to a training centre at Ekron, and we do a week of where they try out different parts of the business, electricity, gas, and things like that.
No, that's great. And just my final point, I just have got a question on interviews, but actually, guys, we can answer that because next week we've got a break in the content schedule. But the week after that, I'm getting emotional, sorry, 17th of March, we've got video interviews with Experian. The week after that, 24th of March, we've got assessment centres with Jaguar Land Rover. And if you are applying for National Grid, for example, their first stage is an application form. So, you know, that we mentioned that today. Then it's that digital interview, so we can cover a little bit of practice with Experian on that. And then it's game-based assessment centres and assessment centres at the end. So, you know, that Jaguar Land Rover and Experian session coming up will be really helpful if you are applying for National Grid, and they can answer more of your questions around the interview.
Fantastic. Listen, guys, today's session, we've looked at CVs and what to put in it and how to get that application ball rolling. You've heard from the guys at National Grid. The opportunities are going to close on the 14th of March. So you've got time, but not too much time to get your CV sorted and get it in. If you want my support, you better get it in quick, and we can work through it to get your applications in. Chris has said about the sessions that follow up and that are there and are coming up. If you're new to Pathway CTM, register yourself with our website, because I put the link in the chat box so that you can get access to these recordings, this information, to my support. Okay, Chris said it, we've got a break next week. You're going back to school and college. Take a week off from Job Ready, get yourself settled back in, and then we will see you the week after. One last question that is an important one that's come through, and it's asked, if you are not a UK national, can you apply? For the majority of jobs, you can apply as long as you have the correct right to work in the UK. You don't have to be a UK national to have the right to work in the UK. But as long as you have that, you can apply for jobs.
Definitely. And just final point for me before we just say goodbye to our panelists is, if you are not in education employment training at the moment, do contact Max at student@pathwayctm.com. You can see it in the chat box on the page there, because obviously you won't be going back to school or college next week, and we can help you even further, help you find where you want to go. And who knows, it might be with National Grid. But I just want to say thank you, Michael, Simon, thanks so much for your time today and giving your insights. And in one word, why should they go to National Grid, do you think? Or one or two? Who wants to take that on?
That's tough one. Great opportunities.
Love it.
I was just going to say as well, I've been with the company for a long time, and they've, you know, been really flexible. There's loads of opportunities for different roles and development as well. So yeah, for me, it's been a great company to work for.
Yeah, I'd probably go with development. There's nowhere else where you get the standard of training, everything paid for. It's probably the best for development and qualifications.
And look, yes.
Chris, I don't work for National Grid, but I can tell you from this session, what I can pick out is that National Grid provides a lot of support and training. They have everything set up for you. There's opportunities there for you after GCSE forward, but the salary is very good as well. And when you see a salary that good, it means that they care about you and they look after you. And that's what you've heard from Simon and Michael and Jenny as well. But these are the things that you need to look at when you're thinking about your next opportunity. Why? Because they care about you, they invest in you, and they develop you and make you into an awesome human being and a great employee. There you go. That's what I'd say.
Yeah, on that note then, guys, we'll see you in 2 weeks' time. And thanks so much to everyone for this session. Have a good evening.
Great. Thanks, everyone.
Yes, thank you.
Bye.
Yeah.